Elias Cade sat alone on the long metal bench near Gate 17, exactly where the light from the station's ceiling panels flickered just enough to make people uncomfortable. It was not planned that way. It simply happened. People walked toward the bench, saw him, noticed the scar, and then quietly changed direction. Some pretended to check their wrist displays. Some suddenly remembered another gate. Some stopped, stared for a second too long, and then moved away with tight faces. The scar was impossible to miss. It ran from his left temple down across his cheek, pale and uneven, like the memory of a blade that had refused to be gentle. It pulled slightly at the skin around his eye, giving him a look that many mistook for anger. Those who did not know him saw danger. Those who knew scars knew survival. Elias did not react to the avoidance. He had learned long ago that silence was easier than explanations. He sat with his back straight, boots planted firmly on the deck, hands resting calmly on his knees. His clothes were simple, dark, and worn, the kind worn by people who traveled often and stayed nowhere long. There were no visible weapons, no insignia, nothing that suggested importance. Just a man with a scar and a quiet presence. The station was crowded. It always was during times like these. The neutral hub floated between several contested systems, a place where species that did not trust each other agreed, reluctantly, not to fight. Diplomats moved in guarded groups. Traders argued over cargo rights. Refugees clutched bags that held everything they still owned. Above them all, the low hum of the station vibrated like a held breath. Voices blended together in dozens of languages. Screens along the walls displayed departure times, warnings, and political notices carefully worded to avoid blame. Security drones drifted slowly near the ceiling, their sensors scanning constantly. Everyone felt it. Tension pressed down on the station like invisible weight. Elias watched it all without comment. Across the open waiting area, a group of tall, thin beings from a high-gravity world whispered among themselves. One of them gestured subtly toward Elias, its long fingers twitching. Another shook its head sharply. None of them sat. A young merchant with scaled skin approached the bench, hesitated, then chose the floor instead, sitting cross-legged several steps away. He avoided looking directly at Elias, though curiosity pulled his eyes back again and again. Elias had seen this pattern on dozens of worlds. The scar always spoke before he did. It told stories people invented for themselves. Criminal, mercenary, violent, broken. Very few guessed the truth, and fewer still cared to ask. He shifted slightly, adjusting the strap of the travel bag at his feet. Inside were a few clothes, an old data pad, and a transit token that would take him 3 systems farther from the last place that remembered his name. That was how he preferred it. A soft announcement echoed through the station, repeating in multiple languages. Delays were expected. Increased inspections were underway. Travelers were advised to remain calm. No one did. Elias glanced at the bench again, at the empty space beside him. He did not expect it to change. Then it did. Someone stopped in front of the bench. Elias noticed the shadow first. It was smaller than most, with a different shape. He looked up slowly, ready for another quick retreat, another polite excuse. Instead, the person sat down, just like that. The bench shifted slightly under the added weight, a soft sound as a bag was placed on the floor. No hesitation, no sudden fear, just a calm, deliberate motion. Elias turned his head, surprised despite himself. She was not human. Her species was unfamiliar, though he had traveled far enough to know many. Her skin had a subtle metallic sheen, smooth and softly reflective, catching the station light in gentle patterns. Her eyes were large and bright, set forward like a predator's, but filled with curiosity rather than threat. She wore simple travel clothing, practical and unmarked. She smiled at him. It was not nervous. It was not forced. It was the kind of smile given when sitting next to someone was the most normal thing in the universe. "Hello," she said in clear, careful comment. Around them, the waiting area seemed to quiet. It was not silence exactly, but a shift, as if attention had subtly leaned in their direction. Elias could feel eyes on them now, open and sharp. "Hello," Elias replied after a moment. His voice was calm, low, and steady. She adjusted her posture slightly, sitting comfortably, hands folded in her lap. She did not look at the scar. She did not glance away. She looked at his face the way people were supposed to look at faces. "My name is Lyra," she said. "Elias," he replied. They sat like that, side by side, two travelers waiting for a gate to open. The tension did not leave the station, but something shifted around the bench. A few people frowned. A few whispered. One or two looked confused, as if some unspoken rule had just been broken. Elias was aware of the change, but he did not move away. For reasons he did not fully understand, he did not want to. Lyra glanced around the waiting area. "Busy place," she said. "Busier than usual," Elias answered. She nodded. "Conflict brings movement. Movement brings fear." It was not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that existed because words were not required. Then the station lights flickered. It was brief, almost unnoticeable, but Elias felt it instantly. Years of experience sharpened his senses. He straightened slightly, eyes lifting toward the ceiling. The hum of the station changed pitch. Lyra noticed too. Her posture shifted, her smile fading into alert focus. "That was not scheduled," she said. "No," Elias agreed. A second flicker followed, longer this time. Several screens reset. Conversations faltered. A low murmur spread through the crowd. Security drones adjusted their patrol paths, moving faster now, tighter formations. Elias rose smoothly to his feet. People nearby noticed. Some took a step back, startled by the sudden movement. Others watched him closely, as if expecting violence. Lyra stood as well without being told. "You sensed it," she said quietly. "Yes." The calm, neutral voice of the station AI was replaced by sharp alerts, repeating urgently. Unauthorized vessels detected. Defensive protocols engaged. All civilians were advised to remain where they were until further notice. Panic did not wait for instructions. People shouted. Species reacted according to instinct. Some ran. Some froze. Some began arguing with security drones that did not answer. A child cried somewhere in the crowd. A merchant dropped a container that shattered across the deck. Elias scanned the area quickly, assessing exits, choke points, cover. He did not reach for a weapon because he did not need one yet. Lyra looked at him, her eyes steady. "You are not afraid," she observed. "I am," Elias replied. "I just don't let it decide for me." Red light washed across the walls and floor, turning familiar paths into something hostile and strange. The station AI continued to repeat instructions, but fear made most people deaf. Elias moved first. He stepped forward into the flow of panicking travelers, raising one hand, his voice calm but firm. "Slow down. Running will get you trapped." Some ignored him. Some did not. A few stopped because something in his tone felt solid, like a wall you could lean against when everything else was shaking. Lyra stayed close to his right side. She did not grab his arm or cling to him. She simply matched his pace, her eyes scanning the crowd and the overhead structures. Security drones descended lower, their lights flashing between red and white. One drifted too close to a group of frightened refugees, its warning tone escalating. The crowd reacted badly. Someone shoved. Another screamed. The group pressed together, blocking a corridor. Elias stepped between them and the drone. He did not touch it, he spoke to it. "Threat level misread," he said clearly. "No hostile intent here. Reassign path and give them space." Its sensors flickered. Lyra glanced at Elias, surprised. "You know their command language." "Stay away from the outer ring. Follow the blue floor lights when they activate." Yet, he reached the container just in time, planting his shoulder into it and redirecting its path into a support strut. The impact sent pain through his arm, but he barely noticed. He turned immediately, scanning for injuries. Lyra knelt beside an elderly traveler who had fallen. She spoke softly in a language Elias did not understand, her hands glowing faintly as she stabilized the being's breathing. The traveler's panic eased, replaced by shaky calm. You have medical training, Elias said. Yes, Lyra replied. And observation training. The station AI's voice changed again, losing its neutral tone. Attention! Breach detected in outer maintenance ring. Boarding likely. Security forces are mobilizing. Elias climbed onto a low service platform, making himself visible. Listen, he said, his voice cutting through the noise without shouting. The outer ring is compromised. The inner hub is shielded. Follow the emergency lights. If you can walk, help someone who can't. No one moves alone. But then the emergency lights activated, glowing blue along one corridor exactly as Elias had predicted. That was enough. The crowd began to move, not as a stampede, but as a stream. Elias jumped down and guided people at the junction, directing flow, preventing bottlenecks. Lyra moved ahead, clearing fallen debris with surprising strength for her size. As they worked, distant sounds echoed through the station. Not explosions, but something worse. The sound of hull cutting tools, slow, methodical. They are confident, Lyra said quietly. Too confident. Thick armored doors began to slide shut, sealing off sections of the station. Security teams in dark armor rushed past, weapons raised, faces tight with focus. One of the officers slowed when he saw Elias. Sir, the officer said, hesitating, we could use help. Drones aren't reporting back. Lyra stepped forward. If you do not, you will lose this station, she said calmly. Something in her certainty tipped the balance. The officer nodded. You have 10 minutes. Heat signatures appeared. Movement patterns formed. There, Elias said. 3 boarding teams, 1 decoy. They're avoiding main corridors. They think you'll defend the obvious points. That corridor has civilians. Wasn't the worst one. Then it's time to make them uncomfortable. There is something you should know, she said. He met her gaze. Now. And Elias looked toward the sealed inner hub where thousands of civilians waited. Then we hold here, he said, as long as it takes. And somewhere beyond the sealed doors, the invaders regrouped, unaware that one scarred human had already turned the station itself into a weapon. The sealed inner hub felt smaller with every passing minute. Thousands of people waited behind reinforced doors, listening to distant sounds they did not fully understand. The station lights flickered again, weaker now, and the hum of power systems strained like something breathing too fast. Elias stood at the edge of the central control area, eyes fixed on the tactical display. The invaders had pulled back, reorganizing. That worried him more than a reckless charge. Smart enemies learned. Smart enemies adapted. Security teams moved into new positions, following the routes Elias had marked. Some looked at him with open respect now, others with fear, but none questioned his instructions. They're scanning us, one officer said, trying to find our blind spots. We'll use that to see how humans react under pressure. That means they'll try something simple. That's the distraction. Break that, and the station becomes a countdown. Yes. Security teams rushed in, catching the attackers off balance. The assault stalled. A ripple of relief passed through the control room, but Elias did not relax. His eyes stayed on the display. Still not over, he said. As if in answer, the station shuddered again, harder than before. Power dipped sharply. Several screens went dark. A new symbol appeared on the tactical map. Large, slow, purposeful. What is that? An officer whispered. Elias recognized the pattern immediately. His expression darkened. That's not a boarding team, he said. That's a command unit. They want to know why things aren't going as planned. They want answers. Its eyes locked onto the camera with unsettling focus. Human, the leader said, its voice filtered but clear. We know you are there. Explain. It matches records from multiple conflict zones. And you have yours. The offer hung in the air, heavy with implication. Lyra looked at Elias. They are serious, she said softly. This choice echoes far beyond the station. You invaded a place full of civilians, Elias said. You caused fear, damage, and death. Because we don't abandon each other. He sagged slightly, the weight of exhaustion finally catching up to him. Lyra watched the retreating signals, her expression thoughtful. They have learned something important today, she said. And so have we, Elias replied. The station systems groaned as power stabilized. Emergency lights shifted back toward normal brightness. The alarms fell silent one by one. Cheers began somewhere in the inner hub. People who had been holding their breath finally let it out. Elias sat down heavily on a nearby bench, the same posture he had held hours earlier, though everything else had changed. Lyra sat beside him again. You stood against them without aggression, she said, without cruelty. She looked at the scar on his face, really looked this time. You carry history, she said, but you do not let it rule you. And somewhere beyond the hull, an invading force carried a new understanding of what a single human, scarred and calm, could do when pushed too far. The station did not celebrate right away. It breathed first. Systems stabilized slowly, like a wounded animal testing its legs. Power rerouted. Life support returned to full strength. The artificial gravity evened out and the constant low hum settled into something steady again. Only then did people begin to realize they were safe. The sealed doors to the inner hub opened in stages. Families stepped out cautiously, eyes wide, hands still shaking. Some cried openly. Some laughed without knowing why. Some simply sat on the floor where they stood, overwhelmed by the sudden release of fear. Elias remained on the bench near the control area, his shoulders heavy, his breathing slow and controlled. The adrenaline was fading now, leaving behind exhaustion that settled deep into his bones. He felt every bruise, every pulled muscle. The pain in his arm from stopping the cargo container throbbed in time with his heartbeat. Lyra stayed beside him. Security officers moved through the area, checking injuries, restoring order. More than a few glanced at Elias with expressions that mixed respect and disbelief. Word had already spread, even without official announcements. People talked. People always did. That's him, someone whispered, the one with the scar. On behalf of this station and everyone on it, thank you. We would like to offer you a formal commendation, the official continued. And a position if you're interested, advisory role, strategic planning, you'd have full authority. Same offer. Your species often seeks it. External cameras had captured parts of the retreat. Sensor data leaked faster than officials could stop it. Across nearby systems, the story began to spread. A neutral station attacked. Civilians threatened. A single human coordinated defense. Invaders withdrew. Speculation exploded. Some called it exaggeration. Others called it a warning. Analysts replayed footage, slowing it down, studying Elias' movements, his decisions, the way the station itself seemed to respond to him. And always the image of the scarred man appeared. Not shouting, not raging, standing calmly while chaos broke around him. Lyra received a discreet alert on her device. She read it silently, then looked up at Elias. My report has been requested, she said. Elias nodded. I figured it would be. I will say that humanity is not predictable, she said at last. Not because you are irrational, but because you are relational. Are you the one? The child asked. Elias lowered himself slightly to be closer to eye level. I'm just someone who was here. They will remember you, she said. Elias exhaled. I hope they remember the station held, not me. What happens now, observer? You were a catalyst, not the cause. Elias took it, surprised by the warmth of her grip. I sat beside you because I recognized the scar, she said quietly, not as a sign of violence but of choice. You chose to stand before. You chose again today. I will remember that. As his ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, messages raced ahead of him across the stars. Some governments increased defenses. Some invaders reconsidered plans. Some observers updated models that had not accounted for quiet courage. And on countless stations and worlds, when people saw a scarred human sit alone, fewer chose to move away. Some chose to sit beside him first. Because the galaxy had learned something simple and unsettling. Humans did not need to look dangerous to be formidable. They did not need orders to protect others. And when tested, they did not break the way expectations said they should. They adapted. They endured. They stood. And the universe adjusted just a little around that fact. No one wanted to sit next to him because of his scar, until one person sat down.